So today we're going to be talking about some of the initiatives and a referendum that you will definitely see out there in public this year. Now, I've wanted to discuss these just a few times recently, and for whatever reason, we just ran out of time, so let's get to it right now. Now, before I get into the details about these initiatives, I want to remind you to hit the subscribe button down below and also hit the like and then share this video with others who might appreciate the content. Our channel is not very popular with the political elite, so they put pressure on YouTube to shadow ban the content, and you can help actually overcome that pressure by sharing, liking, and subscribing to this channel. Also, if you think I've missed something, please make your comments known in the comment section below. I do try to read pretty much every one of them, and I'm often able to respond to most of them. So, now back to the initiatives that you might have already seen in front of stores or perhaps at events or elsewhere in Washington State. Today I'm just going to discuss two of them, but in the near future I expect to have kind of more time to discuss a handful of additional initiatives that you're probably going to see out there this year as well. Now, today I'm going to discuss Initiative 281, which is Protect Parental Rights, and Referendum 101, Stop the State from Hiding Our Kids. So if you see people out there collecting signatures for either or both of these initiatives, you will notice some differences. And I'm holding completed examples of both of these in my hand right now, and I'll kind of Vanna White them for you as I'm holding them. But I'll discuss each one specifically, and then I'll explain the essential differences on the practical process between initiatives and referendums later in this video. So first, let's talk about R-101, which is this one right here. R-101 is called the Stop the State from Hiding Our Kids referendum. And essentially, this repeals a terrible bill, and I did a video on this a few months ago called SB 5599, which was very controversial because it allowed the state to conceal the location of your kids from you, the parent, law enforcement, and pretty much everyone else for days if your child claims that they have run away to conduct permanent genital mutilation or life-changing medication like hormone blockers or perhaps to have an abortion. Now, this bill was a terrible bill with no age limit. Despite what the supporters claim, you can actually go back and look at the effort to impose an age limit, which was rejected by the Democrats in the legislature when it was passed earlier this year. Now, parents are understandably shocked and concerned that the state will allow these secretive, shady non-profits or other organizations to conceal the location of your child and then keep it secret from parents and law enforcement while they conduct secret, life-changing medical procedures on them without parental consent or knowledge. So this bill was a high priority for the Washington State Democrats for some bizarre reason, and it has been widely mocked for the almost certain child abuse that will occur under the protection and concealment of this piece of legislation. Now, I call it state-sanctioned kidnapping, but regardless of what you call it, this bill woke a lot of parents up to the abuse the state and the weird special interests who kind of push this bill plan for your kids. Now, if you plan to run away to Idaho and get away from this craziness, sorry, that won't help you because Washington State explicitly plans to encourage these weird special interest groups to lure kids away from other states, particularly Idaho, Montana, and Utah, so that they can hide those kids from their parents as well, as long as someone claims the kids want to have an abortion or genitally mutilate themselves or take life-changing hormone blockers. Now, anyway, this referendum basically is collecting signatures so that this recent bill is going to be put up for a vote of the people to see if they're willing to reject or support SB 5599. It's very simple and easy to understand. There's a website set up for this referendum called reject5599.com. It's easy to read about this one and make your own decision as to whether you want the option to vote on this yourself. Now, they need to collect about 200,000 signatures by the middle of July so that they can turn this one in at the end of July for validation at the Secretary of State's office. Now, the second one that I'm discussing today is Initiative 2081, which I'm basically holding here in my hand. And you'll often see people, and this is what it looks like here. You'll kind of see it. That'll be the headline right here. You'll see people collecting signatures for kind of both of these at the same time, most likely. So if you support one, most people are probably going to be supporting both. And you'll want to probably sign the other one too. At least that's kind of what I would expect. I mean, this initiative is called the Protect Parental Rights Initiative. And this is a pretty simple initiative that attempts to restore a parental Bill of Rights to Washington state law, recognizing that a variety of kind of special interests have been working overtime all the time, basically, to erode the connection between parents and their children for quite some time now. Now, if you read the full text found on the back of each of the initiative sheet and on the letsgowashington.com website, you can see that this initiative formally recognizes parents as the primary stakeholder in their children's upbringing and their education. And they need to have access, as parents, to student and medical information on their children, which has been gradually, kind of over the last few years, denied to parents. And this is basic information about the curriculum their child gets at school, medical and health records, etc. It is very straightforward, and you can read it in just a few minutes by looking at the back of the initiative or by going to the Let's Go Washington website. Now, obviously, this initiative also effectively overrules some of the more egregious parts of SB 5599, but it's less defensive than the referendum, and it takes a more proactive approach to addressing some of the many concerns raised by involved parents over the past few years. There's kind of various bureaucracies and these other special interests. They attempt to secretly hide information about their children from parents who certainly have a right to know what is actually happening to their children when they entrust their children to healthcare providers, school districts, and others. It's just bizarre that we even have to talk about this. Now, I suspect that most of the viewers of this video are probably likely to support these two projects, and you're likely to want to sign them if you can. However, I also suggest that if you want to get involved more, go to the sponsors of these two initiatives at one of these two websites and communicate directly with them in case you want to help collect more signatures yourself and, of course, help spread the word. These types of activism projects are very time intensive, they're chaotic, and very challenging to successfully implement, but it can be done, and you can play your part. Now, if you don't think children should be protected and you enjoy that the legislature is actually doing to kids on behalf of a variety of kind of these weird special interests, then you probably don't like this video, and you're welcome to hit the thumbs down button down below. Leave an angry comment. I welcome your thoughts, even if I might disagree with them. And not being a leftist, I don't believe in censorship. But that being said, I'm going to remind you that Google will automatically, pretty much absolutely censor your comments if you use excessive profanity or other trigger words. And frankly, I may not even see your comment at all if you use that type of language in your comments. So just a heads up, if you want anyone to read your comment, I'm not censoring you, but Google and YouTube probably will. Now, let me explain the practical and the legal differences between a referendum and an initiative to the legislature. I've actually produced some videos last year that dealt with the subject effectively. I believe it did anyway, and I'll link that video down below and kind of relevant source documents in case you want to look at them in the video description area. And if you want to get more detailed information there, I recommend you go there. But I will summarize what I think is most important to remember about these two distinct processes right now. Now, I said two distinct processes, but there are essentially three processes that have been in place in Washington state since Washington voters approved Amendment 7 to the Washington state Constitution back in 1912. So it's not recent. The one that's not relevant to this video is actually the Initiative to the People, and I won't bother with that one because there are no initiatives to the people to discuss right now that I'm aware of. But I-2081 that I discussed earlier is an initiative to the legislature. And this means that they need to collect roughly 325,000 signatures by the end of the year, which actually means that they collect about 400,000 signatures that they submit to be safe. And they are then submitted to the Washington State Secretary of State. Assuming that they have enough valid signatures, then this initiative is submitted to the legislature. And then the legislature has the ability to approve as submitted. They can't change it, but they have the right to approve this and make it law, or they can ignore it or reject it, in which case that this initiative will actually be on the November 2024 ballot. Now, they also have a rarely utilized option to create a similar alternative version of this initiative and then have the original initiative and then this legislature-approved version on the ballot in 2024. But since Democrats control the state legislature and they hate parental rights in general right now, this initiative, if successful, will be most likely something that you're going to be able to vote on in 2024. So let's look at the referendum process. Now, the referendum, which is R-101, that has a smaller threshold of signatures to gather, so it's roughly 160,000. However, to be safe, the organizers are certainly trying to gather about 200,000 or more signatures, which is half the amount needed for the initiative. Now, that sounds easier, but it isn't, because all of those signatures have to be gathered by late July. The organizers are wanting to gather the final signed signature sheets no later than July 15th, and this is a tough lift. But if enough people get kind of fired up and involved, this can be done, and it would be a big deal if this task can be completed by that time. If they are successful in this process and the Secretary of State confirms that they've received enough valid signatures, then this referendum will be on the ballot later this year in November of 2023 for the people, you and I, to vote on. Here's where the referendum process can be confusing. The people gathering the signatures are wanting to reject this referendum. This means that they're collecting signatures to put this on the ballot in November so that it can be rejected. But the language is legally drafted in a kind of a confusing manner, in my opinion. So the supporters are going to be emphasizing that they're rejecting this referendum by signing the sheets and getting it on the ballot. Now, inside baseball, kind of wonkish sort of stuff here, but it's my opinion that in addition to the short time frame to collect signatures, this confusing ballot language has frequently contributed to confusion at the ballot box many times in the past. So the people struggling to collect the signatures, when they are successful, they are often unable to have enough marketing resources and venues to explain to the very same people who just signed to get the referendum on the ballot to vote against it. So often people will remember that they supported the effort and then they signed it, so they're going to vote for the referendum when they mean to actually reject it. So this confusion is really one of the reasons that people have often shied away from referendums in the past. However, if they can keep the messaging going on this issue and they are motivated to get it done, then we have basically about a month to cross over the finish line with signatures. And it's a lot of work, but it has been done a few times recently with R-88 and R-90. So many of us will be cheering them on, and I'm assuming many of the viewers of this video will be assisting in the signature gathering process over the next few weeks. Now, I expect that I'll have another video up next week to discuss the additional initiatives that are being launched, but you'll have to wait until then to hear about those. In the meantime, just remember there's a few things relevant to this video. If you support these initiatives, sign them, sure, but also help collect more signatures from others. Everyone that you know. I mean, I suspect that these are not hard topics to get signatures collected for, so if you care, just go out there and get involved. And finally, just remember, if you want to make a difference, don't sit back passively and hope somebody else is going to do the work for you to basically see that work get done. You have to get involved yourself. You have to show up. Because, as always, the future, in the end, will always belong to those who actually show up. Thank you for watching.